Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. Bill Monroe was the father of bluegrass. John Lee Hooker was one of the forefathers of blues. Sam Cooke for rhythm, Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk for jazz. How about world music, specifically Indian ragas? Ravi Shankar is an undoubted forefather, as is his drummate Alu Raka, the father of Zakir Hussain. Those cats influenced psychedelic rock, jazz, and classical music because of the polyrhythms and the clear improvisation that is evident to John Handy, Pete Magadini, Charles Lloyd, and the late Colin Walcott. In this host's mind, the greatest and most unsung forefather of Indian music is Ali Akbar Khan, who believed everyone deserved an education, saw it as a basic part of human existence. He felt so strongly about this that he opened a school right in Berkeley amidst the hipsters, flipsters, and finger-poppin' daddies who learned tablas from Mahapurush Mishra and sarod from Ali Akbar Khan. The place acted as a polyrhythmic monastery. People walked out enlightened, whether they were the most dedicated musician or scholar. It fostered a community where many local musicians did concerts to help support the school itself. My guest today is the most accomplished sarod player in the world today. He grew up in British India but knew from a young age that he would play the same instrument as his father. He decided if that was the case, then he better practice, mutter, speak the rhythms even before he could pick up the instrument. Under the tutelage of his grandfather, he learned rhythm, to create space within music, and to project. Be it a stage in the countryside of India or the Hollywood Bowl with his father, the sonic nature of my guest's playing reverberates within the eardrum and back out in a loop of concentric circles that help fuse Shanti and the third eye, carrying on classical Indian music but fusing with jazz and bossa rhythms when he came to the States in the 60s. He continues to play all over California, all over the world, and teach at the California Institute for the Arts. Aashish Khan, it's an honor to have you on the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you.
Aashish, can you talk about, was it already built into the scripture, so to speak, that you would learn from your grandfather? What was your dad doing that you couldn't just learn from him?
Well, I was the first grandchild, and that was like overwhelming for my grandfather because he never expected he would have a son. And then when he found me, he was totally overwhelmed, and both my grandparents, and they raised me, and then he gave me the sarod, baby sarod to start with, then later on the vocal music, and so on and so forth. And at that time, my father was struggling to establish himself. He went to Lucknow Radio to get a job. He was there for a few years. Then from there, he went to Jodhpur, where Jodhpur Maharaja took him as his court musician, and from there he left Jodhpur and Maharaja died in a plane crash. Then he went to Bombay, which is known as Mumbai, and he went to do some film work. And that also, he didn't like it because he was not getting paid, and naturally he had a family. And of course I used to see my father. He used to come very often to see my grandfather in my house, and I was still with my grandfather. Then in 1955, my father went to America. He's the first person to bring Indian music to the West with Pandit Chaturlal, who was given a title of Tabla Wizard. And then when he came back, he decided that he's going to have me, my mother, my other brothers, and move to Calcutta. And that's what he did. And that's the time I started living with him. But also I used to visit my grandfather sometimes to take my, music lesson. And then my father established his Ali Akbar College of Music in Calcutta. And then he started touring to East Africa, Kenya and all that. And then he came to Canada for some time with Rosette Show in Montreal, McGill University. He was teaching there. After that, he came to Berkeley, where this society, the American Eastern Art something ASA, American Society for Eastern Arts.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have a summer uh, classes, like for 3 months, and Indian music and Japanese music. That's what they were promoting. And sometimes they used to bring the famous South Indian dancers, Srimati Bala Saraswati. So this is how things were going on. Then after 3 years, they decided they're going to drop my father. So all his students who've been learning from him the last 3 years, they got very upset and angry. They said, we will set up a school for you, and you are coming next year. So 1968, my father came back again, and that was the time when the college was established as an Ali Akbar College of Music. And then he started, spending more time in America than India. And he didn't go to India for 4 or 5 years to perform. Then once the college was established, and then he started going in the winter to perform in India, and he used to come back. But he was very dedicated, very honest and sincere teacher, and he sacrificed his music, not by playing, because he was trying to promote his father's music to his disciples in America. So he had few thousand students who learned from him.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's the story in a short.
How did you obviously Alu Raka played tablas and Zakir would play tablas, but your grandfather, I was doing some research. He was the greatest Indian musician ever. Is that right?
Yeah, he's the father of Indian music.
Father of Indian music, and you, yeah. So tell me about a couple of practice when you were younger. What your memories are of the kind of practice that he would. What were some of the things like? Would he talk in your ear? What would he do? Like when you were younger, even before you really started playing the instrument.
Well, I was very young, maybe around 5 or 6 when he started. I don't exactly, but roughly at that age he started me teaching. And he could play more than 200 instruments because he had a very struggling life. He ran away from his home at the age of 8 to learn music. And it's a long story about his life. But anyway, so he wanted to teach. His door was open for everybody. He won't accept even a single penny from students. He'll keep them, feed them. Sometimes he'll give them money to go and visit your parents and come back. So his house was like in an ashram. And a lot of musicians came, all the famous like a Pannalal Ghosh, the flutist, Nikhil Banerjee, and Sharan Rani, my uncle Bahadur Khan, my second brother Dhanish, myself, my sister Amina. We all learned from him, and there were many students used to come and just learn and leave. Some couldn't even take his strict discipline, so they had to run away. So, yeah.
Well, but I mean, did he like how long of the days did you spend playing music?
Well, my practice hour was 12 hours a day, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, 4 hours in the evening. Sometimes he will teach me like a morning ragas in the morning, afternoon ragas in the afternoon, night ragas in the night. And when there is a monsoon season, he will teach me seasonal ragas. In spring season, he will teach me spring ragas. So like that, he used to teach not just me, all his disciples who were there at that time. So he was a big, strict teacher and very disciplined, highly disciplined.
It's I would like to know what kind of music was in your ears when you were a teenager. But before you came to the States, what were you hearing? How open was the radio where you lived in India, and what kind of tunes were you taking in?
Well, we were not allowed to listen to any kind of music.
Oh, okay.
And he had only radio in his room, and he will only call us if there's a good program to come and listen. and that's all. And mostly we were practicing or doing my homework because I had a private tutor. There was no good school at that time. So he will only call me or call us to come listen to this such and such artist, such and such vocalist. And so he was very, particular that nothing influences. And those days, film music was there, but since my head was a very small kind of a village, and and so there was not much of a entertainment or any cinema house. But later on, when I was, I think, maybe 11 or 12, there was a cinema hall was built, and he will only take us on Fridays, or if there's a good movie which he thinks that we should watch, then he will take us to the movie theater. Yeah.
That's good. Was the theater? Was it a mixed thing? Like, would you get some live entertainment and a movie and a whole bunch of things, or just the movie?
There was nothing. It was a village. I mean, so only just practice and learn, and sometime you go to movie. That's it, and no entertainment. And of course, in the evening I had to get 2 hours break, and then I used to play soccer or badminton or go for a walk, and then come back and start learning from him. Evening time was the time when he used to teach me.
So you had to seek other. Did you gravitate to other forms of music almost right away, or when did you start to branch out and be able to learn about jazz chords, jazz structure, anything like that? When did that begin to take root?
Well, my grandfather was very fond of Beethoven. When he went to Europe, he bought some 78, those 12-inch long recordings.
Right.
So he used to listen to that, and sometimes I used to listen to that. And then he had his own orchestra. He was the first man to have the Indian orchestration done. So when he used to have rehearsal, I used to go and listen, and that's how I developed taste for compositions and orchestration. And then when I came to America in 1967 with my father, and that's the time I started listening to different kind of music like jazz and flamenco guitar and symphonies. Even I heard mandarins playing. So, and then my first exposure was in India was Duke Ellington. He came to India, and at the time my father went to see him, and that was a live concert with his brass band. Right. And he gave some LP to my father, and the only thing I liked at that time was the blues. And that's how I was being exposed to jazz from India with Duke Ellington's music. Wow.
Unbelievable. And then, but in 67, what was? Let me ask you one question about what was your favorite season of ragas, or maybe that's not even the right question. What?
Well, I like more serious ragas because they have much more depth. Yeah. And especially the ragas which you can play the alap very, in a much deeper sense, and the slow development of the rag. That's what I like. Of course, I like light ragas too, but the first part is always with a serious rag, and I like to play with different tals because my tal is, the rhythm is like a challenge to me, and it keeps you like you're on your toes, especially all like your odd beats, 11, 13, 15, 14. Yeah. Yeah. 10 and a quarter. I've invented a new tal called 10 and a quarter. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it's a very mathematical rhythm because we are dealing with quarters. We are not dealing with beats now anymore. Mm-hmm. Beat is there, but if every beat has 4 quarters. This is how it's developed. So it's much easier to count like that.
Do you feel that when you came to the States, how much did you explore? You were smack dab in the middle of Berkeley, California. Were you out like? Did you seek? Were you out at the clubs, and did you take your sarod everywhere?
And now, first of all, it was a cultural shock for me because coming from India is a totally different world. And then gradually, I started listening to different music. And my first guitar concert which I went was a Bola Sete. That was a live concert in Berkeley.
Wow.
Came, and that's the first time I saw how the classical guitar is played. And that blew my mind,
In what way?
Well, the technique, the music, and speed, and because in India we used to hear only the slide guitars, and that's not anymore. After listening to Bola Sete, I completely my mind changed, and then I learned something that guitar is something else. It's not just slide guitar, which they use in India so much.
But what allowed you? How did you get your foothold in the States? I can totally respect the fact of you coming over here. I would have been the same way. There was culture shock, but what helped center you, or what are your memories of getting centered here?
Well, then I met some of my American friends, and actually the more interest I got when I went to England in '67, and before that I have met George Harrison in Calcutta, and then when I was touring with my father in the month of December, I went to England, and George Harrison came and he asked me, would you like to play in one of my movies soundtrack? That was the what's his name? Anyway, so I said, of course. Then he took me to his studio, Abbey Road, and those days they had only 8 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and Mahapurush Mishra, he played. Then he asked me to do something else on the second track, and that really blew my mind because, first of all, I had no idea that you can overdub and do all the kind of things. But anyway, I did it, and he liked it very much, and that's how I get much closer to him. And then in '68, I was again visiting in England, and there was a film producer. They were trying to produce a Indo-Pakistan movie, and they wanted a song on a rock and roll based. So I had no idea about rock and roll, so I asked George's help. I did the melody, then he comes at 3 in the morning with all his musician friends like Eric Clapton, Ringo Starr, Willie Presley.
Wow.
I'm not saying it wrong.
Wow.
Billy Preston. Billy Preston.
Billy Preston, you're right on.
And a few other musicians, because I was not much aware of rock and roll music and musicians.
Right.
I only knew George and Ringo at that time. So anyway, they recorded, and then I wanted George to sing the song, and he said, no, you sing it. So naturally, I had to do a track so that somebody can overdub, and that blew my mind. That sound, their music, his playing, Ringo's drum, and Eric Clapton's guitar, and that inspired me to do something like that. When I came back to America, then there were some American musicians. They were looking for Indian musicians. So our producer Richard Bach, who produced many LPs, World Pacific LPs, so they came to him, and then we met, and then I played for them, and they played for me, and that's how we became very friendly. And we decided why not we have a group. Then we decided to call it Shanti, and then we started rehearsing, then performing, then recording, and all that. And in fact, we became a talk of the country from east to west. All the disc jockeys used to talk. And we were the contemporary of Santana and the Chicago, the original Chicago. So we three groups were very popular at those days: Shanti, Santana, and Chicago. But unfortunately, some people got scared that this guy is going to surpass my name. So they started bribing my manager, and I was totally innocent. I didn't know all these games going behind me. And then naturally our group got dismantled, and that's it. But I'm trying to again recreate my Shanti. In fact, I'm performing with my students 3rd of May in Kerala. So we have a yearly World Music Festival, and I'm going to recreate the Shanti again because I love that group, that music, and also I have another group in New Orleans that is a purely jazz group called Shringar.
Wow.
Where I'll be performing this next week. Will we start performing from 21st till 30th in New Orleans. There's a jazz club, Snug Harbor, which is a very prestigious jazz club, and there will be some other clubs which will be playing the Shringar, and this will be Indian music with jazz. So I'm still fighting to keep my desire going on, and with all kind of obstacles which I have faced in my life.
Yeah, no, the story that I got, I mean, I've chronicled Shanti, and you're the 3rd member of the band that I've talked to, and, basically Ravi Shankar didn't give his blessing. You guys would have been, it was George Harrison loved you guys. And
actually he wanted to work with me because our ideas plus age and things were like the same age group, and I was not I was open-minded, whereas Ravi Shankar was showing that, oh my God, I won't do this, I won't do that. But later on he started following my footsteps,
Mm-hmm.
And he produced that LP, I think, Om Shanti, then he did something, Tana Mana and all that. So, but he really destroyed me in a way. I mean, I wish my group was there and I could have done so many things, In fact, George Harrison wanted to produce Shanti, but Ravi Shankar told him, no, don't produce these guys. So, and then finally our producer sold us for $15,000 to Atlantic Records, and that was our cost of our LP, which we paid to the studios. We didn't get any single penny.
You know something, though? I want to tell you this, Aashish.
Yeah.
That record I have maybe only 50 records. I've almost cut my collection down to nothing. That is a record I found in Phoenix about 3 years ago, and I know you didn't make any money on it, but it really is one of the most special albums in my collection. I listened to both of the Indian tunes that you wrote on there, and it really is. Neil was an early fan of my show, and Zakir, and I look at the group and I'm like, this is just extremely progressive, and I talk about how the group formed, though. I mean, that to me is the astounding part. Where was and Pranesh is he your brother or cousin?
No, he's my brother.
He's your brother. So how did how did it come together?
Well, Zakir was the main percussionist, and then I wanted to have two different drums, Indian drums playing, together, and that really gave a different color, And so my brother used to play the naal, Zakir used to play tholak, sometimes tabla. So, but my brother, he continued playing the naal, which is a folk drum from Maharashtra, and it's very high-pitched drum, and so it blended very well with the group,
Well, and also the way that, but it's beyond that, because the way that you orchestrated the tune. Actually, I believe the title track. There's a sarod solo, and then like pretty soon after that, Neil's playing an electric guitar solo. Then you clearly give breaks for both percussion instruments. Then there's a drum solo. I mean, to me, it was accentuating all the world percussion, and then obviously with the sort of psychedelic of rock of that period was just to me it just was, it has meant millions of light years of enlightenment for me as a journalist. So I thank you for that, and also the brotherhood that still exists, and the fact that you carry on those traditions with your students. Do you feel like you still have room to grow as a like, where do you want to grow in terms of your musicianship, and who you are as sort of a professor and sage at this point?
Well, our music has no end. It's infinite, and more you grow old, more you start going deeper and deeper into the music, and it's very spiritual, and especially the rhythm part, to me now, I feel it's like a space where you're flying without thinking, and you're coming to the climax, which we call the tihais, and playing together with the drum. And so that's my feeling now for the rhythm part. And I have created few good students in America, and they're already performing, and you'll be happy to hear them someday. And at the same time, I'm writing more music for my new group, Shingar, and I think you'll like it more, because now I have matured, and I have been in this country for so many years and listening to so many music. And recently I have recorded with some Persian musicians in Dubai, and I'm going to release that recording. And because once I was flying to Dubai, and it was a 16 hours flight, so I was listening to the Middle Eastern music. I didn't go to sleep. 16 hours I was listening of the music, yeah. You won't believe it.
I love it.
I didn't sleep at all. But anyway, so that inspired me, and to learn their tonality, because their microtones are very different from ours, even from the Western music. So I was trying to learn their music, their rhythms, and somehow I've been successful in a way that I could blend my music, my melody, with their instruments and with their microphones and with their percussion. So I've done some experiment, and pretty soon, hopefully by next year, I'm going to release that, and I'll send it to you.
What was the instrument makeup of that band in Dubai? You were playing sarod. What were the other instruments?
One was Persian santur, and their bow instrument, I'm forgetting the name, and bazooka, whatever.
Yeah.
Bazooka, and hand drums, dumbek, and Comanche, I think Comanche. I forget things. Comanche, and there was another guy who was playing, he was playing both Comanche and the violin in a Middle Eastern style.
Wow.
And and the other guy was playing the santur, the Persian santur. So it's really created a very wonderful blend. And the melodies, I wrote the melodies, and they were just improvising kind of a thing, you know.
What do you perform with your father at the Hollywood Bowl? I believe it was your first appearance in this in the States. Tell me about
67.
tell me about anything was that whole day a blur, or I mean, what was that? Explain that experience.
First of all, playing in such a huge place, it holds about 20,000 people, and it was a very thrilling experience for me and very exciting. And when the 20,000 people start applauding, that sound was mind-blowing. And so it was a great experience for me, and I find myself very fortunate to play with him in that concert. And of course, I did play a few more with him now and then, him and Nikhil Banerjee. That's the first time I came to America in 67. Myself, Nikhil Banerjee, with my father, to help him and to teach at the American Society for Eastern Arts.
How did you run across Charles Lloyd? Because the interesting thing is these albums that I have, Bhagavad Gita, the album you and Pranesh are both on it, and I'm like, you know, when did their paths cross? Because he must have seen you guys perform. I just would love you to tell me how that came about, because that album is just a wonderful trip.
That's another story. I got a contract from Capitol Records in 1975 to do an album. So I was doing it with studio musicians, all the top musicians like Emil Richards, Charles Lloyd, then Hal Blaine, then Jim Kelsner, and Woolman, who used to play with George at one time. And then a few other names which I don't remember right now. And this was recording which I was supposed to release, and I was waiting, and that's the time I met Charles Lloyd. And I brought Hari Prasad Chaurasia. That was his first trip to America, especially to record in that album. And this album never got released. That was another game of politics. They stopped me.
My God, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I mean, I'm really.
I was waiting, and then one day I called Capitol. They said, "No, we canceled your release." I said, "What? All that work, all that effort, and still I have the recording with me, and I'm still planning to release it someday."
Aashish, you should absolutely.
Jazz Beyond.
You should be releasing that on vinyl. What is that sound of that album? How would you classify that music?
It was also blend between jazz and Indian music, and that's why I call it Jazz Beyond. You know, that's the title of the.
Was that the name of the album?
Yeah.
And do you have any? You have a copy of the music?
Yeah, I have a recording. It's a completely finished product, you know.
Right, I was going to say Emil Richards, these wonderful, all these different...
All the
all
the top musicians of Hollywood, they were playing, you know.
Yeah, no, that to me was a wild scene, but so Charles invited you, and you did that record with him, and then what else were you doing, aside from being ripped off by record companies? What else were you doing in the studios? I'm trying to follow your studio career. You know, the Harrison record is a very psychedelic record. I mean, that was amazing. You had some very heavy moments early in your life. You had to grow up very quickly. Is that true? Is that fair to say?
Say it again.
I mean, do you feel like you had some really heavy moments happen in your life? I mean, do you feel like you had to grow up very quickly?
Yeah, because I was still struggling after when the council got dismantled, and somehow I got this contract from Capitol Records, and I finished the product, and I was waiting for the release, and then I hear it's been sabotaged by somebody who really wanted to be released, and that was the end of one of my dreams. And then the next thing was I was going door to door to different record companies, and nobody encouraged me. They all used to say, what kind of music we can call it? What kind of they were not ready for that music because I was before my time.
Maybe you still are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that can you put it in perspective in this day and age? The qualities that you may or may not possess, but the qualities that your father had, insofar as rather than which we see in people really just looking out for themselves and their families, where your dad took this holistic approach towards learning and towards sharing, and how that rubbed off on you, if it in any way.
Well, that's what I'm trying to follow my grandfather's footsteps and my father's, and I have quite a few good students. They're already performing in India. Here also some students, they are performing, and I'm trying to keep that tradition going on at the same time. And also I'm teaching my nephew Shiraz in India. I'm hoping he will carry on our tradition. He also plays sarod, but he's a left-handed sarod player like my grandfather.
Wow.
Yeah. And he also has a jazz band called India Blue, which is quite popular in India and with all the young musicians. And he's doing also very well. He's keeping his classical at the same time he's doing this music. And he's playing some of my compositions, some of my father's compositions. Yeah.
Why did George Harrison love your dad so much?
Well, probably because my father didn't have that kind of a very simple man, and he never had the intention to exploit George Harrison or use him. So that's why he liked, but the rest you know.
I was gonna. And do you play with? Do you and Pranesh still play together?
Yeah, we do play. We do play sometimes.
Well, can you tell me the next time that you play so I can come out and hang with you guys?
Well, he's been also taught by my grandfather, because when he was very small kid, maybe 6 or 7, when we used to practice, he used to take a dholak and he will try to, it's a two-headed drum, a folk drum, and he will barely could reach them because he was so small, but he will try to imitate whatever we are playing on the drums.
Wow.
So when my grandfather saw that, then he started teaching in tabla. And unfortunately, we had to leave for Calcutta because my mother said, "You two brothers are learning music," because we were 4 brothers. Myself, my second brother Dhyanesh, who passed away. So we both are musicians, but I'd like to have my 2 other kids, my younger brother Pranesh and the Amaresh, who is the youngest. He was also learning violin from my grandfather. So she decided that since we are moving to city, they should go to school, because I don't want them to be musicians. So that was the end of his training. Although my grandfather, his wish was to teach him all the odd instruments, like a shustringa, rabab, makhawaj, tabla, and to my youngest brother, he was preparing him to be a violinist. or anything. But Pranesh, somehow I pushed him, and he kept the tabla, and he's a very good accompanist, and sometimes he gets opportunity to play with me and also with other artists, and he teaches in the Bay Area, so he lives there.
Aashish, do you think that younger, I'm really fascinated, the students that you encounter, do you think it's harder in today's world to develop your own individual sound? Just because there is not as many venues to play at, there's so much of a saturation of media out there. I mean, I just go back and I listen to, you're playing, or it could be anybody, any of the great jazz drummers, and everybody had their own individual sound, and you could tell who it was by the way they played. And I wonder if you think that students you see, is it harder today to create your own individuality?
Well, the sound of sarod, which my father has introduced to the world, nobody can escape from that. And whoever plays the sarod tries to imitate his sound of sarod. And naturally, I'm trying to follow his sound, and since I have learned from the same guru, my grandfather was my guru, my father also learned from him. So naturally we have a lot of similarity in our music, and of course I try to do something different of my own, because it's a very creative art, and instead of just copying, I don't believe in copying somebody. After some time, in the beginning you may have to copy when you're a student.
Right.
After that, you have to be an individual person, and that's what I believe, and I tell my students the same thing, and I also try the same thing.
Was that something that that was ever told to you, or that you always felt that way? Or did somebody preach that to you growing up, like your grandfather?
Well, when we learn the music, especially the improvisation part, which is like your personal creation, and when we are learning it, we are taught how to improvise, and then he will correct if I'm making any mistakes. And I do the same thing with my students. I say, just improvise, I'll correct you. So that's how our music is learned and played.
Is there any place around your area where the kind of music that you play live?
Yeah, I play in Los Angeles. There's a music circle I've been playing for many years, and then my next concert is in Kellogg's World Music Festival on 3rd of May in the evening, and then I'm leaving for Bahamas this Saturday, where I'll be playing for this music festival for Shivanand Yoga Ashram on the 19th. Yes, 19th I'm playing there. Then 20th I go to New Orleans to play with my jazz group. Yeah, he had come back on 31st.
Yeah, you're carrying on the traditions of your dad quite well, man. You're doing good. Is your calendar always busy, or do you ever just hang locally?
Well, I try to use my time as much as I can. When I have no classes, either I'm going to India or I'm going to Europe, or I'm like right now we have a spring break, so I decided to go to to New Orleans. So this is how I keep myself busy. And like in summer, I'll be gone to India, then to Europe, then come back. So all year round, I'm just traveling.
Do you go to the really poor remote villages and teach and talk to the people? Do any type of when you go back to India? Do you or are you more in the urban centers?
I live in Calcutta, so I have some senior students, advanced students. They come for lessons, and then this year probably I'll be doing some workshops like in Calcutta and in Bombay, these two places, and then also in Switzerland while coming back. So these are my plans right now.
Well, I must say it was a pleasure to talk to you, and I really and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll get it out right away.
Sure, and send me a copy if you can. I'll send you my mailing address.
Of course.
So I can listen to it.
I would be honored, and would Pranesh be up for an interview as well?
Yeah, you can do Pranesh. He's in India right now. He'll be back next week.
All right, I'll talk. I'll listen. Listen. It was really an honor to talk to you. Just send me your home address. I'll mail you a CD.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.